Everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we're starting our top 50 games of all time. We do this list every year. Last year we only did 40 games. We're pushing out to 50 this year. I have played, since I started tracking my games, which was in 2014, I have played 268 games. So this list is a little bit less than the top 20% of the games I've played. 2,064 plays of 268 games, which is around 1,785 hours. I have an H index of 22, which means that I've played at least 22 games, 22 different times. And on this list, there are 12 new games. Now, interestingly, if you just look at the top 40 of this list, so ignore the 10 I'm going to share with you today and go into the top 40, there are 9 new games. And last year in the top 40, there were also 9 new games. So kind of a similar cult of the new effect going on with the list. But we will see how stable the list gets as we get near the top. The top 10 is, it's pretty stable. Definitely the most stable section of the list. So without anything else, we're going to get into it. Now, I, in the past, have also done this by the minute. I set a timer. I spend about a minute per game. This year, we're going to slow it down a little bit. I actually may end up having some guests join me as we get near the top of the list as well. We'll see if that ends up working out. But we're going to slow it down and just spend some time talking about these games. All right, number 50 is Viticulture. This was 52 last year, so it is hanging in there right in the same general area. This is a game from Stonemaier Games, Jamie Stegmaier and company. So in here, this is a game basically about winemaking. And let's see, I'll show you some of this stuff here. So you've got this area right here, which is your vineyard. Let's get all the rest of these boards out of the way. All right, so you got your vineyard over here. And as you're making wine, you'll actually be putting these tokens out here. And, you got level 1 grapes, and they will mature as the years go on. And eventually, you got red grapes and white grapes over here. And, you'll eventually make wine, and that also will mature in the cellars, but you'll actually have to upgrade your cellars. And so all that's going on. You have all these different things here in your vineyard that you can upgrade: irrigation, trellis that helps you build or plant different types of grapes. For instance, let's see. For instance, you've got this grape right here that requires that the trellis is built, whereas this grape right here requires that the irrigation is built, and then some of them will require both, as you can see there. And let's get the main board out here as well so you can see that. So on the main board, you've got different seasons. The different colors are, or let's see, you've got summer and winter here, where in the summertime you can plant and draw the more, basically get more grapes that you can plant. You can play summer visitors, which are things like the uncertified architect or the agriculturalist or the tour guide. All this, give tours, all this kind of stuff to make a little bit of money. And then in the fall, you'll draw a visitor card of your choice, summer or winter. And then in the winter time, this is when you can harvest and you can make up the 2 wine tokens, which is how they end up over here on your board. And you can fill orders. Like so, this order right here needs a level 9 from down here. So that's going to be a real difficult one to get to, because you actually have to have a large cellar, and you've got to, in order to create this, you'd have to have 2 reds and a white to get down here, and then you have to get it matured all the way up to level 9. The winter visitors, you have those as well, which are people like the noble and the harvest expert and the scholar. So much going on here. You can play up to 6 players. You develop residual income down here for completing orders. There's so many cool things to do here, and it's a lot of fun. And I really love the visual of the board as well. All right, number 49 is Small World. This was actually number 20 last year, and I think a lot of that was it may have been riding high on some nostalgia. I did manage to get to the table several times this year, and each time it was fun, but just didn't quite hold up to my memory of it. But Small World is an area control game where you've got, in a base game, you have all these races to play as and all these special powers, and they're going to mix and match as you play. There's also plenty of expansions. I have 3 expansions, I believe. This was a solo version of it that I have not played yet. That is an official solo variant, so I would definitely need to check that out. One cool thing with Small World is that the whole idea is they want all the factions to be cramped together to where they have to fight. So this is the 2-player board that has just a few areas for you to use. Whereas if you go to the 3-player board, there's more areas, but it's still going to make sure that 3 players are together and real close together, and very difficult for them to have a whole lot of space to spread out without getting into combat. And then you have the 4-player board, and then a 5-player board as well. So no matter the player count, it is going to scale because they have the specific number of regions that you need to make sure that everybody is kind of crunched in next to each other. And so as you're playing, you're going to be collecting coins, which are the victory points. You're going to play a certain number of rounds. For instance, if you're playing, this is the 2-player board, you play 10 rounds. If it's 3 players, you also play 10 rounds. I believe it goes down in a 4-player game. 4 players is 9 rounds, and 5 players is 8 rounds. So as you're playing, you will select race and a special ability. So in this case, the Marauding Barbarians, or maybe you are the Historian Orcs, or maybe it's the Barricade Pixies, right? And there are some of those are expansion factions that I have in here, by the way. But as you get them, depending on, so like, with the Historian Orcs, this number and this number is the number of people you'll have to begin with. So in this case, you'll have 10. But if the Orcs had been the Barricade Orcs, then they would only start with 9. So that also affects what's going on. You can see you have all these. These are your pieces, these little chits right here. And so as you spread out across the map, you'll be fighting each other. The combat is deterministic. There's no real guesswork, except for with 1 or 2 factions that is just built in that there is guesswork. But for the most part, it's deterministic as you go through and fight each other. And yeah, it is a good time. It just has fallen a little bit for me, but I'm hoping to get it to the table once or twice more this next year and see if maybe with some higher player counts, I can get a more interesting game going. Number 48 is Keep Up the Fire, the Boxer Rebellion. This is a solo-only game. And it's got this nice sleeve on there, which may be the first game I've ever had with a sleeve, I think. Maybe not. No, Evil Dead 2. Anyway, so in here, what you've got is a game replicating the Boxer Rebellion, as you might have guessed. You've got 2 boards here that you're going to use. This board is going to follow as the reinforcements, as your reinforcements try to fight their way to get to Peking to either support or evacuate or whatever it is. You need them to get there because you can't hold out on your own. And you're going to be tracking their combat power and their speed as they move along. And you'll have events over here as well, which is what this draw pile down here is for. And then you've got the other board here that is the embattled area, where so you're here in Fort Halliday, and you've got both boxers as well as Chinese imperial forces coming in along these routes, the north, south, east, and west, trying to attack you, trying to kill you. You've got these different factions up here that are all in here. These different, all of you basically are fighting against the Chinese forces as they're coming in here. You've got to keep track of your fortification level. You've got the combat ability here for each of the groups that are coming in. You're going to have events over here as well. And this tracks the current strength of, Japan, Austria, Germany, Italy, United States, United Kingdom, Russia, and France. And you got to hold out until these guys get there. I did a gameplay of this. It's a lot of fun. I think there's definitely some more strategy in there than is necessarily apparent at the beginning. And just to give you an idea, these are like the real events that occurred during this time, and you can play them either. You can see the numbers at the bottom of the card. You can play them in numerical order, which means you're playing in chronological order of how it happened, or you can randomize it just so that you, as a player, don't know what's coming up next. Number 47 was number 55 last year, Legendary Marvel deck building game. It is obviously, this box has been beaten up, but this game is cool. This is essentially, it's one of the earlier deck building games. I mean, it's been out for, I want to say at least 10 years at this point. I've got several expansions: Paint the Town Red, Guardians of the Galaxy, Deadpool. And what you're going to do, you're going to go through, and over here I've got all my heroes, and you're going to pick several heroes for the game. Let me see if I've got, where's my randomizers? Oh, that's right, I use an app for randomizers. But maybe, so maybe you go with Black Cat as one of your heroes, and she's got all these abilities in here. All right, so we pick Black Cat, let's just go kind of random here. Who we got? We've got the Incredible Hulk. All right, and you can see as you got expansions, they started varying up the artwork, and in the original, it was literally all the same artwork. So, but they did start changing that up. Let's go. I think you normally have, I want to say 4. So we'll throw in, who is a Slapstick? It's supposed to be one of Deadpool's guys. Okay, yeah. And let's say, let's go up here. Let's say, Deadpool. There we go. All right. Okay. And then you would also end up fighting up against a villain. Now we've got, who all do we have in here? We've got, where are the villains? Down here. Carnage, Dr. Doom, Evil Deadpool, Loki, Macho Gomez, Magneto, Mysterio, Red Skull, Supreme Intelligence of the Krang? Yeah, it's Supreme Intelligence, right? No, oops, that's Red Skull, Supreme Intelligence. Yeah, of the Kree. That's right. That's Kree guy. So maybe that's who you got out there. And then you've got minions as well. You've got all kinds. You got Kree Star Force, Maximum Carnage, Radiation. Basically these different types. So like with Radiation, for instance, that's going to be the Leader, Abomination, Zax, and Maestro. So all these different mix and match things, so many combinations, and you start the game with just your normal thing, how you start with garbage. You've got Shield Agent and you've got Shield Troopers, and the Agent is giving you the ability to recruit, and the Troopers are giving you the ability to fight. And you're going to use those starting cards to then start buying your additional hero cards, build the deck together so you can go through and beat the super villain, who's going to have a scheme. Where are the schemes in here? And as you go through, you're going to have to do a certain amount of damage, but he's got different things that are going to happen, and you work through, you beat that card. And so as you beat each card, you're working through this guy's master plan or whatever, and then you get to the last one, and then you win the game, hopefully. But it can, depending on which guy you're playing. I mean, we've got Thanos in here, who, this is pre-Infinity War Thanos, so he's not as bad as a lot of people are going to, here are the schemes over here, as a lot of people are going to remember from the movies. But still, it's a really cool system, a really cool setup to provide endless amounts of combinations. Number 46 is Roll for the Galaxy. Now, I don't actually own a copy of this game, which is why we're back up here and I'm talking to you this way. But Roll for the Galaxy is basically the Race for the Galaxy dice game. You roll a bunch of dice, and then the dice are going to have different symbols which reflect different actions that you can do. And based on which actions you take, you're going to is basically going to allow other players to do certain things. There's kind of other players are going to be able to do the actions as well. If you unlock, this particular action, then everybody gets to do it. And so as you take these actions, as you colonize planets, all this kind of stuff, you're going to gain different dice. Lots of different color dice, all have different, different things, different purposes for all these different dice, and it really has so many cool ideas, so many cool interactions with the way the planets work, some of the special abilities, the dice, all the ways that you use the dice, and the fact that each player's choices directly affect all the other players really helps keep everybody interested in what's going on and minimizes the amount of downtime in the game. Number 45 is Nidavellir. This is brand new to the list, of course, because it came out this past year, I believe. Nidavellir is a relatively small sort of set collection game, I believe is the best way to describe it. You've got different suits. It's a bunch of pictures of dwarves. The theme really doesn't matter for this game. It's a set collection game, but the art is really cool. I do like the art a lot for this game. Different suits of cards. I believe it's 5 different suits. I can't remember exactly. And as you're playing, you have money that you're using to purchase, or coins that you're using to purchase cards. But then as you purchase cards, your coins get upgraded to be more valuable, so that you can purchase better cards, and really you're bidding for this different stuff against other players. And then the different suits you want to collect in different ways, and it really it's such a simple concept, but it really provides a lot of interesting choices. And as you play it, you start to see the strategies start to kind of open up in front of you very quick. Like halfway into the game, I was like, oh, okay, I see now. Well, here's a couple mistakes I made early in the game because I didn't understand the strategy, but here's some things I can do that I'm kind of already set myself up nicely for. And being able to pick up on that stuff so quickly is one of the benefits of having this kind of smaller, compact game. Very, very cool production. Really enjoyed what it had to offer in terms of just the table presence as well. That's Nidavellir. Next up, we've got Warfighter, and specifically Shadow War, the Modern Night combat card game. This started out at number 18 last year when it debuted on the list, down to 44 now. It's one that I haven't found myself bringing back off the shelf enough to justify that high of a rating, and that's why it has dropped a little bit. I still definitely want to get back into it. There's a lot going on in here. This is a game where, let's get the board out real quick. I mean, this involves stealth, it involves noise checks, and of course it is modern combat, modern warfare, as the name suggests. So as you're going through this, you're going to be dealing with lots of different stuff going on here. So you've got, you can see these are actual like night vision pictures here, from probably either training or real combat. But as you use these cards, you've got the action deck here. This whole thing, these are all different action cards, right? So all this different stuff you can do: move out, steady aim, so you can play when you declare a range attack, add to your attack rolls. You got snapshot. Any soldier may perform an attack without spending an action. So you can see there's lots of different stuff going on here. That's a location. And just follow me. Play after you any soldier. Inflict a kill with a suppressed attack until the end of the turn. Reduce interest cost of all locations by 2. So some very specific ways to use these cards. On the location cards, you actually have an entrance value, and that's something different. But with these right here, you've got night insertion and night extraction. So maybe you use a helicopter insertion. And depending on which type of helicopter you use, that will have a different effect. We only perform noise 0 and 1 attacks, or a +1 location card if you use a Black Hawk. You could parachute in, halo drop, an amphibious assault. And then when you are getting extracted, you also have different options. Again, Black Hawk helicopter, you could go get out on foot. Amphibious exit, you've got Humvees you can use. Then you've got these objectives. I mean, there's all this different stuff that you can do. You got this Tapa Hacking Center, VIP Assassination, Escaping VIP, VIP Defector, and each of these has their own specific, deals that you have to deal with as far as different hostiles and different abilities and situations that might come up. As far as hostiles go, for one thing, you won't even know exactly what the hostile is necessarily until you get close enough, but you've got guards and sentries and watchtowers that are going to be a problem. You got to get, 2 shots on that. You've got, fanatics have their own, situation going on as far as how you deal with them. You could evade, so much stuff. A really, really strong simulation from a card game point of view of what modern warfare tactics look like. Obviously, it's not going to be the same as if you're playing a game with miniatures and the tables and everything go along with that. But from a card game, this really provides a lot. And since it is the nighttime version, Shadow War, you've got this noise track over here as well that you're dealing. You're dealing with noise, trying to stay quiet and discreet. So very, very cool. Oh, and don't forget, by the way, all this over here, you've got, you can recruit these different soldiers onto your team, and you've, based off of how many points they cost, you've got all these different soldiers, right? You also then have all these different weapons that you can get: the M14, the K-bar knife, M2 munition, MP5 SMG. And then there's different skills that you can have, like Shadows 10+, Noise Discipline skill, Silent Movement. So much cool stuff going on here. All right, next up we have Spirit Island at number 43. Spirit Island is a cooperative game where all of the players are playing as these deities of this island that is being invaded basically by colonizers. And so right off the bat, you see this kind of cool dynamic with how the production plays into the theme, in that all of the natives, all the stuff that belongs to the players, everything that's on your side is wooden and cardboard pieces, and then everything that is the enemy, that are the colonizers, are these plastic pieces, which has that nice kind of just immediate, easy to see divide, and a very thematic divide as well. And so as you're playing as these different deities or spirits, you are using very different abilities and powers to try to drive out the invaders. You're going to be trying to scare them off. You're going to be causing different calamities to happen, and as they invade, the game starts to ramp up in difficulty, and it gets very, very hard to successfully drive them out. But when you do drive them out, it's very satisfying. And I've never played it solo, only played it multiplayer, but I've heard it is one of the best solo games out there. In fact, on Board Game Geek, in the annual voting to see what the best solo games are. Spirit Island has won the past several years. It actually knocked Mage Knight off as #1 solo game. So I definitely need to try this one solo. Number 42 is Xia Legends of a Drift System. This is one that I used to own. I don't anymore, and I wish I did. The group that I have now would love to play this game, I think. I really think they would really enjoy it. My previous group just didn't get into it. My wife didn't get into it. I tried a couple different times, a couple different ways to get people into the game, and it just didn't do it. But this group that I'm playing with now would love it. So I'm probably gonna have to get my hands on this game again. Xia is a sandbox space game. You are in a relatively small spaceship, so we're not talking, giant, Star Destroyer size ships. We're talking more Millennium Falcon size ships, right? You've got a relatively small crew, and the crew doesn't even really play into it, but in terms of the size of the ship, so you're transporting goods from merchants, or you're going out, you're gonna be a bounty hunter, or maybe you're gonna be a pirate, or all this kind of stuff. There's pick up and deliver a way to make victory points. There's an exploration way to make victory points. There's a combat way to make victory points. And it's a modular board, so as you're exploring, you're flipping the tiles out. You can do blind jumps, which run the risk of you jumping right into a sun and setting yourself back, or you can take your time and explore, like scan the sectors that are coming up. Mining. Mining's a huge part of the game if you want to go that route to make money. And by the way, the game comes with these metal coins that are phenomenal. They are so cool. There's so much good about this game. It's got a lot of dice rolling. In fact, the original version of the game before the expansion, Embers of a Forsaken Sun or Forsaken Star. Anyway, the Embers expansion. Before that expansion came out, there was a lot of talk about the fact that it was essentially a roll and move. Like you really did, depending on the size of your engine, you rolled either a D6, D8, or D12 to determine how far you moved. And there was a house rule that I used to get around that, which I almost never use house rules. So the fact that I used a house rule for that kind of gives you an idea of how much I felt like it was necessary. The expansion fixed the issue. It's still got some rolling going on in terms of movement, but the expansion addressed that and made it much more palatable. And finally, number 41 today, which is also new to the list, we have Genotype. All right, so in this one, this is from Genius Games, who have made a reputation for themselves for creating games that are not only educational but also fun, and that is something that has been very difficult for people to get right in really for as long as I can remember. I mean, anytime I played games back in high school or middle school or whatever that the teacher had in class, other than when I saw a teacher bring in Axis and Allies for a history class, other than that, the games just really left something to be desired. But here with this, you are going to, and forgive me if I don't get the genetic terms right here because I don't fully understand all that, but you're going to be manipulating, let's get some of this stuff out. Okay, so let's say you're rolling, the dice over here, right? And so the X gene, that's something, let's just, okay, there we go. We'll do it that way. I'm not going to worry about the X right now, but so 3 is going to be here, right? Because you have the big R, the little r. 1 is here. 3 again goes right there. 2 is little r, and 4 is also that. And you can see it actually tells you the scientific name for what's going on here. And you can alter the results. Not the results, but you could alter ahead of time. Maybe you want to change this to that because this is what you're really trying to focus on in your research. Well, that would change things up quite a bit because then 1 would actually go here. 3 now would be down here in the bottom, as would 2 and 4. They'd all be over here. And just like that, it's completely changed how things work. And, you've got obviously the 4 different colored dice. You're going to be researching these different plants. Over here, you're actually going to you can get research upgrades, a new plot, extra dice slots, action markers, or hire assistants. Additionally, there's ways you're going to be making money. You can set research goals. Where are the assistants? Yeah, in here are the assistants. These people have all kinds of cool powers to help you out. Brother Franz over here, I think that means you got 2 extra dice slots. All this different stuff here. So Father Omari, I can't remember what he does specifically, but I remember really liking having him as my advisor for sure. Father Edward, I think that's an additional plot. Anyway, obviously you can reference what each of them does. You have your player board here, which is where you'll be doing all your work. You got your 2 plots, you got your dice slots, or dice slots, temporary dice slots, all this kind of stuff. And as you go through it, you go through five. I think it might be 5 rounds. And at the end of the game, what is the end game here? Is it? I can't remember if it's. Oh, right. The plants themselves have points on them, and so there's various ways you're going to be collecting points, including with the money. This is such a cool, fun experience, and if you're really into what the science behind it, it's got this entire book here that explains the science and also why they made their design choices that they did for the game to help it thematically match up with the science. Genius Games really has a lot of promise and cool stuff going on. They are really pushing out great games that also are educational, and this is definitely one of those. But thanks so much for watching our top 50 through 41 games. Be sure to come back and we'll tackle 40 through 31 here in just a few days. And until next time, if you're bored online, board offline.